On March 20, 2003, bombs rained down on Baghdad. The US with the UK launched an invasion of Iraq, the goal to disarm Iraq of its supposed weapons of mass destruction. A mushroom cloud, a symbol of horror, loomed over Baghdad. The Bush administration claimed Saddam Hussein was developing these weapons. This claim, repeated endlessly, proved false. The world held its breath. Was this a new era of US dominance? Over 2 decades, the answer is yes. The Iraq War, built on fear and misinformation, had devastating consequences. The invasion was swift, Saddam's regime toppled quickly, but the promised WMDs, nowhere to be found. The Bush administration scrambled for justification. The damage was done. The world witnessed a superpower steamroll international law on a false premise. To understand the US invasion of Iraq, one must delve into the tumultuous history of the region. The 1990 to 1991 Gulf War saw Saddam Hussein invade Kuwait, pitting the US and its allies against Iraq. The US-led coalition expelled Iraqi forces, but Saddam remained a threat. The UN demanded Iraq dismantle its WMD program and allow inspections. Saddam obstructed inspectors, fueling suspicions about his intentions. Doubts grew, setting the stage for the Bush administration's claims. But the story goes back even further. The Iran-Iraq War left its mark on the region. Saddam used chemical weapons against Iranian troops and Kurds. This act lent credibility to the Bush administration's claims. The post-9/11 world was consumed by fear. The Bush administration placed Iraq in its crosshairs. Iraq was labeled part of an axis of evil. The narrative, amplified by the media, took hold. The Bush administration, in the lead-up to the invasion, presented a compelling case to the world. Iraq, they claimed, possessed mobile biological weapons labs, capable of producing deadly agents within days. They pointed to aluminum tubes, purportedly for enriching uranium, and even suggested Iraq could launch a chemical attack on the UK within 45 minutes. These claims, presented with the utmost seriousness by figures like Colin Powell, then Secretary of State, sent shivers down the spines of many. But there was a problem. The evidence was, to put it mildly, lacking. The aluminum tubes were later revealed to be for conventional rockets. The mobile labs nothing more than a figment of a defector's imagination. The intelligence community, pressured to find evidence that supported the administration's narrative, found itself bending over backwards. Dissenting voices were silenced, alternative explanations dismissed. The result was a deeply flawed intelligence picture, one that painted Iraq as a far greater threat than it actually was. The Downing Street memo, leaked in 2005, would later expose the extent of the deception. The memo, a record of a meeting between Tony Blair and his advisors, revealed that the Bush administration had already decided to invade Iraq, and intelligence was being fixed around the policy. The truth, it seemed, was far more cynical than anyone had imagined. Section 4, A World Divided. The US, in its quest to invade Iraq, cobbled together a coalition of the willing, a motley crew of countries that either supported the invasion or were pressured into providing some level of support. The UK, under Tony Blair, was the most notable partner, followed by Australia and Poland. However, the invasion was met with widespread international condemnation. France, Germany, Russia, and China all opposed the war, arguing it violated international law and would further destabilize the region. Millions took to the streets in cities around the world, protesting what they saw as an illegal and immoral war. The Arab world, in particular, was outraged. The invasion was seen as a blatant power grab, an attempt by the US to assert its dominance over the oil-rich region. The war, far from making the world safer, fueled anti-American sentiment and created a breeding ground for extremism. The invasion of Iraq, rather than uniting the world against a common enemy, had the opposite effect. It exposed deep divisions within the international community and eroded trust in the US as a global leader. The consequences of this fractured world order are still being felt today. Section 5, The Crumbling Legacy. The Iraq War, sold on the promise of eliminating WMDs and liberating the Iraqi people, ultimately achieved neither. No WMDs were ever found. The war, instead of bringing peace and stability, plunged Iraq into chaos, fueling sectarian violence and creating a power vacuum that groups like ISIS would later exploit. Saddam Hussein, the dictator the US had vowed to remove, was captured in December 2003 and executed in 2006. But his removal did little to quell the violence. The war, estimated to have cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, left the country in ruins. The US withdrew its troops from Iraq in 2011, but the legacy of the war continues to haunt both countries. The war severely damaged America's credibility on the world stage. The images of Abu Ghraib, the revelations of torture and rendition, and the sheer recklessness of the invasion left an indelible stain on America's moral standing. The Iraq War serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked power and the seductive allure of misinformation. It is a war that continues to shape the world today, a war whose true cost is still being tallied.